Well, I was with Naval Intelligence for 3 years, and then I always wanted to be in law enforcement. And I was working in Philadelphia, actually, and you do a lot of work with the FBI because, on the government installations, government bases.
Joseph Pistone began his career in naval intelligence before transitioning to law enforcement, where he naturally gravitated toward the FBI due to his work on government installations. His upbringing in an Italian neighborhood in Paterson, New Jersey, gave him a unique advantage. He was street smart and familiar with the culture and people he would later infiltrate. This background was crucial because it allowed him to blend in naturally with wise guys and criminals, making his undercover work more authentic and believable. His initial assignments involved bank robberies, fugitives, and gambling cases, which helped him develop the skills and confidence needed for deeper undercover operations. This foundation was essential for his later success infiltrating the mafia, as it gave him credibility and the ability to navigate complex criminal environments.
So he says, all right. So he introduces me to this guy and as a car thief. But before he introduced me, I said, look, I got to know how to steal cars. So he gave me about a week's lesson on how to steal cars, how to hook cars.
Hot wire.
Before fully embedding himself with a car theft crew, Pistone had to learn the technical skills of stealing vehicles, including hot wiring and disabling alarms. This hands-on training was critical to establishing his credibility within the criminal group. The crew operated along the East Coast, stealing high-end automobiles and tractor trailers, which Pistone was able to handle due to his prior experience driving trucks during college summers. Trust was a major factor. The informant who brought him in was motivated by a deal to protect his son, which added tension, but also a strong incentive for success. This phase of his undercover work lasted about a year and a half and was a vital stepping stone toward infiltrating the mafia itself.
So, you need to have a profession. I mean, nobody's going to do anything with you without a profession, and it has to be one that's attractive to them. And plus, in the government, if you're going to go undercover, your profession can't be one of violence. So who's not violent? Jewel thief. So I figure, okay, I'll go in as a jewel thief.
To infiltrate the mafia, Pistone had to create a believable and attractive criminal persona. He chose to be a jewel thief because it was a nonviolent profession that would appeal to mobsters and fit within FBI guidelines for undercover work. To make this convincing, he attended diamond and precious gem school to learn how to identify stones and use a jeweler's loupe, and he trained in lockpicking, safe cracking, and alarm systems. This extensive preparation was necessary to avoid detection and to gain the trust of mafia members. Pistone also developed a backstory as an orphan who moved between Florida and California, which helped avoid questions about family or past connections. His undercover work was a full-time, 7-day-a-week commitment, requiring constant presence in bars and social clubs frequented by mobsters to build his legend and credibility.
Finally, I get to the club one day, and there's two guys there that I didn't know. So he introduces them to me as Frankie and Patsy. He said, Donnie, Frankie, Patsy, okay. As it turns out, they just got out of the can. They were part of Jilly's crew.
Pistone's immersion into the mafia involved understanding and respecting their strict protocols and hierarchy. When introduced to made men and associates, he had to prove his worth without overstepping boundaries. An intense moment came when two recently released mobsters tested his skills and loyalty by threatening his life if he couldn't prove he was a capable thief. Pistone handled the situation by being honest about his limitations and standing his ground without disrespecting the made men, which ultimately earned their acceptance. This episode highlights the constant danger and psychological pressure of undercover work, where a single misstep could be fatal. It also shows the importance of knowing when to be assertive and when to be cautious within the mafia's rigid social structure.
So I get back to New York. I get to New York, and he says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this undercover operation. see if we can get something going with these truck hijackings. So the idea was, nobody had ever infiltrated the mob before.
Pistone's undercover work expanded into investigating truck hijackings, a lucrative mafia enterprise involving the theft of high-value goods like pharmaceuticals and food. This operation was groundbreaking because no one had previously infiltrated the mafia to this extent. The mafia's control over various illegal activities was extensive, including unions, gambling, and hijackings. Pistone also describes the complex relationships between different mafia families and their need to coordinate and approve business ventures, such as vending machine operations in Milwaukee and gambling clubs in Florida. These interfamily negotiations involved sit-downs with bosses and underbosses, illustrating the mafia's structured and hierarchical nature. The operations required careful navigation of loyalties and politics, with Pistone often acting as a bridge between families and undercover agents.
So it's 7 days a week. It was 7 days a week.
Did you have a family at the time?
I did, yeah. But
Wow.
they lived across country at the time.
That had to be crazy difficult for them.
Very difficult. It was.
Pistone's undercover assignment demanded total immersion, working 7 days a week with no breaks, which placed enormous strain on his personal life. His family lived across the country, making it difficult to maintain relationships and support. The constant threat of discovery and violence created a high-stress environment where he had to be perpetually vigilant. He never carried a gun, reflecting the mafia's own practice of not openly carrying weapons to avoid police attention. The psychological toll was immense, as he had to balance being himself while convincingly playing a criminal, never letting his guard down. Despite the danger, Pistone maintained his values, refusing to drink excessively or use drugs, which helped him stay grounded and avoid the pitfalls that have ensnared other undercover agents.
When it came out that I was an undercover, in the beginning, the mob didn't believe I was an FBI undercover agent. They thought the FBI had kidnapped me and was trying to turn me. Because we picked it up on the wiretaps and informants.
After Pistone's true identity was revealed, the mafia initially suspected he had been kidnapped and turned by the FBI, which shows their distrust and paranoia. The consequences for those who had vouched for or associated with him were severe. For example, Sonny Black, a top capo who had accepted Pistone, was killed after being called to a sit-down, a ritualized mafia meeting often associated with executions. This underscores the lethal stakes involved in undercover work and the brutal enforcement of mafia loyalty and secrecy. Pistone also recounts how other associates like Tony Mirror and Lefty Rogerio met violent ends or were arrested, highlighting the dangerous and unstable nature of mafia life. Despite the risks, none of the men Pistone worked with turned informant, reflecting the old-school mafia code of silence.
The Art of War, right?
Yes.
The Art of War. And I tell all in any undercover class, you got to read that book, The Art of War. Because it was written thousands of years ago, but it'll serve you today.
Pistone emphasizes the timeless nature of strategy and human behavior, recommending The Art of War as essential reading for undercover agents. He notes that while the mafia's culture has changed, becoming less cohesive and more self-centered, the fundamental principles of infiltration and intelligence gathering remain the same. However, modern technology, including the internet, social media, and pervasive surveillance, has made undercover work far more difficult. Agents must now build detailed legends and backstories that can withstand digital scrutiny, a challenge that did not exist during Pistone's time. The mafia itself has lost much of its former power and influence, partly due to law enforcement successes like Pistone's and the changing social landscape. Nonetheless, organized crime persists, adapting to new realities.
Well, I'm kind of right now. I'm writing. I got another book writing on the Bonanos, and spend time with helping out with that Southern California gang conference I mentioned.
After his undercover career, Joseph Pistone has dedicated himself to educating law enforcement and the public about organized crime. He is writing a new book focused on the Bonanno family and actively participates in the Southern California Gang Conference, which draws hundreds of law enforcement professionals annually. Pistone donates proceeds from his merchandise and book signings to support the families of officers killed in the line of duty, reflecting his commitment to the law enforcement community. Despite the dangers he faced and the lasting impact on his life, Pistone continues to contribute his knowledge and experience to help others combat crime and support those who serve.